Assalamu alaikum. Hi there, everybody. A couple of weeks back on a Saturday afternoon, I was enjoying some pancakes with some maple syrup. And we Canadians love maple syrup, let me tell you that. And the thing is, I received a call, and I was invited to this place. So I was invited, so at first I was elated. Like, yeah, TED Talk and all. But afterwards, ironically enough, I felt so deflated to the extent of feeling marooned. Well, that kind of escalated quickly. But why, though? I'm pretty sure the medical students in the audience, they know why. I mean, I can imagine a nerdy one going like, yeah, that's a lot of oxytocin fighting a lot of cortisol. Yeah, right there, buddy. And that's kind of true if you think about it. So again, why did I go from utter elation to utter deflation? And here's the thing. It's not because of that common notion or that received wisdom from many that people tend to be afraid of public speaking. In my case, it's not the case at all. It doesn't apply. I love public speaking. So the crux of the matter is I have OCD, and I have ODD, and I have ADD, and I have all types of triple letters, okay? So at the end of the day, we tend to be perfectionists, right? So I asked myself a lot of questions. I was thinking what type of topic I would like to land on the podium, and what type of artwork I'm going to be including, and so on and so forth. So the thing is, I was kind of excited, but at the same time I was kind of agitated and stressed out. And you know what? At one point, you guys, I'm sure, you went through the same thing. You are presented with a flux of dilemmas, and after that, you have no choice but to react. And you know what? That's what takes place on a daily basis. We go through so much stress because there's a lot of stimuli out there. And what's common among these stimuli, it's basically that they break that balance. It breaks that equilibrium, that mental equilibrium. And you know what? That is, by definition, the essence of stress. So when you're stressed out, what happens is that you go through a primary cognitive appraisal. You start thinking, okay, I want to construe what's in front of me. I would like to evaluate what's in front of me. Is it a threat? Is it a challenge, right? And afterwards, you go through a secondary appraisal where you start thinking, do I have the arsenal to actually counter this and deal with the scenario in front of me? And that's the thing. Now, there's a question here. If we go through the two appraisals, how can we actually deal with the actual matter? How do you deal with stress? How do people deal with stress on a daily basis? And that's the thing. A lot of people out there, it's unfortunate that they lack the objectivity. They don't know how to deal with stress, and at the same time, they're not serious enough to actually study or analyze the matter. A couple of years back in Qasim University, we carried out a survey. It was a fun survey, actually. We were asking the students, how do you deal with stress? It's that simple. We wanted to see if there's an actual constructive way or approach when it comes to dealing with stress. And the thing is, we found out that a lot of students are less objective. They did not adhere to a specific formula every single time they wanted to tackle down stress on the long run. So instead, they proposed less practical and less objective and less consistent solutions, which are temporary in effect. I mean, some of them actually were thinking about, giving Nutella the mic and telling Nutella to do all the talking. Really. Some people, I asked them, hey, how do you deal with stress? Teacher, تطعيسing, So, which is sand surfing, basically. I asked one student, how do you deal with stress? He's like, I go in my little corner there. I have a folder on my phone, and it has a lot of pictures of motivational quotes. You know what I mean? These quotes photoshopped on the internet and everything. They start telling you, believe in yourself. But they never tell you how. It's so funny. Oh, do your best and leave the rest. It will come right one day or night, but it will never tell you how. That's the funny thing about it. It's like you being sad, and the paper says, be happy. Really? So do you think this is the way to go, or is there an actual mechanism, a panoptic mechanism, which is coveted, it's backed up by science, and you can utilize on the long run, which you can put stress and eventually distress on its knees? And the answer is yes. And before I get into that mechanism, and hopefully by the end of this humble talk, you guys will be utilizing the same mechanism, yes? Before I get into that, I would like to put more emphasis on the pivotal value of having an actual mechanism to begin with. So what good does it do if we deal with stress? When you're stressed, what happens is cortisol, which is basically a hormone which is produced when you're stressed out, it's a stress hormone, it starts fighting oxytocin, right? Which is more of a lovey-dovey type of, hormone. When it wins, then stress gets promoted to distress. At that point, you know what happens? Your cells start breaking down. So you start actually to maintain, higher levels of glucose. So you start eating yourself up. How many times did you hear people tell you, don't eat yourself up? It actually makes sense, literally speaking, right? So the thing is, at that point, you become vulnerable to other negatives, such as agitation, anger, depression. And scientifically speaking, we can create bridges and prove that there's relationships between all these, yeah? So for me, honestly, I call these factors, or these negatives, decision-making inhibitors. Wait a second. Are we saying there's a connection between stress, decision-making, and actually, or consequently, creating opportunities? Yes, yes, and yes. Sure, when it comes to dealing with stress, there's a lot of benefits, physical and psychological, but for me, really, the ultimate is to decrease the opacity and the vagueness when it comes to the actual decision-making process. See, and this is where it gets a little bit personal. I came to Saudi Arabia around 9 years back, and I was coming here and I was thinking, hey, I have a dream to study comparative religions. I'm like, yay, Saudi Arabia. Okay, I'm going to leave now. So the thing is, at first, I did not just go through what expats go through when they come to the East or the Far East, like culture shocks or language barriers or stereotypes, which goes both ways. But I actually did not accept people for who they are. They did not accept me for who I am. So I went through cognitive dissonance, then depression, and I was in the place I really wanted to be, but at the same time, I was not healthy. So at one point, I was thinking, you know what, man? I need to move forward. And I had to go head-to-head with stress, and I had to apply the science. So what I did, alhamdulillah, I rolled up my sleeves, and I faced my demons, and I applied the science, and I start pumping up my oxytocin, which they call it the hug hormone. So I started, running around in the streets, hugging people randomly. Hey, yo, what's up, man? Can I have a hug? Right? So alhamdulillah, it worked out for me in a way that it changed me fully. It made me the person who I am today. Actually, to the extent that it basically opened a lot of doors for me because I put stress on a leash, basically. And you know what? More proper decisions will be made if stress is less. That kind of rings a bell, right? Your mom always tells you, my son, come here. Let me tell you something. Do not make a decision if you're stressed out. Don't even speak when you're stressed out, right? These moms, they know a lot of science, let me tell you that, God bless you, mama. So really. So the thing is, in the end of the day, people are immigrating to Canada, and I'm the one, alhamdulillah, who immigrated in the other direction. So alhamdulillah, and in the end of the day, it worked out. So this mechanism, for me, it has a really a valuable type of stand, really, in my eyes. So without any further delay, I would like to get into that mechanism, which helped me with my survival/revival. This mechanism basically has 3 pillars. The first pillar, which we are proposing, is to be friends with your inner self, that lurking entity inside you, which you will talk to when you're stressed out. So when you're stressed out, you need to allay all the jargon and start talking to your inner self, right? Again, the inner self, you need a lot of self-awareness to create that bridge between the outer you and the inner you. I'm not promoting any multi-personality habits here, but I'm just saying you guys need to talk to the inner self. You know what? People will come up to you and ask you for advice. You will give them ideal advice. But if you are presented with the same conditions, you fail to give the same type of advice to yourself. You know why? Because you do not have that bridge between the outer you and the inner you. So what we're proposing is that when you're stressed out, you take 2 steps back and start talking to the inner self. So again, you need to pay heed now. That inner self is very unique. It's not boxed in by any label. Who are you truly? Oh, I'm a doctor. No, you're beyond that, see? Now, this concept shows up every now and then when it comes to, religions, cultures. It's out there. It presents itself when it comes to ancient times as well, throughout ancient times. And for my humble Arabic and Islamic studies, the closest word to inner self is al-nafs, or rather an-nafs. It comes with 2 concepts. The first concept is wali nafsika alayka haq. Your inner self has rights. So you need to be careful now. At one point, your inner self can sue you, right? In court. I have rights, buddy. So that's the thing, man. And the other one is tahdhibun nafs, which is you want it to behave in the way you want through training. So I'm going to give you an example which will put things into perspective, inshallah, right? Your inner self is like a child. It has the right to be advised and guided, and hopefully it will start behaving on the long run, see? So what we're proposing again is to take 2 steps back, give the rights for that inner self by talking to it, and that will create a pattern which will gain momentum on the long run, and hopefully it will do the following. 1, break down the layers of hurt and negativities, and after that, it will mold you into somebody who will behave, as we said, and morph into somebody who will look at stress in a different light. And that brings us to the second pillar, which is perspective. You're friends with your inner self now, right? Now, mabruk, as they say in Arabic, right? I mean, you need to move forward now. You need to convince your inner self that, hey, stress is actually a good thing. So we're talking about short-term stress here, right? When you're stressed out, it boosts brain functions. Can you believe it? So yes, it works that way because the connections between the neurons are actually stronger when you're stressed out. And studies showed that your learning curve and learning scores are higher when you're stressed out. So it's like a training thing, right? Also, it boosts immunity, believe it or not, and resilience. So mobilization levels of immune cells are higher when you're stressed out, see? And that's the basic principle behind military training. It's all about conditioning, see? That's why the soldier will be walking in on a battlefield and bodies everywhere, right? And Pandora's box is open somewhere and he's just walking by and thinking, hey, I've seen this before. Whatever. Yeah, so it's all about conditioning. And that brings us to the old saying, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So it kind of makes sense. Afterwards, I would like to put a little bit of a slice of optimism into the mix. So imagine the most positive scenario out there, that image, and pin it in the back of your head and feast on it. And again, that is the basic principle behind countering aviophobia. So if you're afraid of aviation, your shrink will tell you, just think about meeting your nieces and nephews on the other side and feast on that image. And it makes sense. So you need to think more positive. You are like a ship. The water around you is all the negatives. You're the one who chooses if you want that water to come into the actual ship, and then you start sinking. So you are the one who chooses that. So choose to be positive and float above, right? So keep calm and float on, right? So that's the thing. So optimism, it's there, and there's different schools of thought when it comes to cognitive thinking. They will tell you different things to be positive, right? You choose what suits you. I mean, this one is flexible. You go for what you think is best, okay? Now, and that's it. So next time you're stressed out, what do? You go for the inner self, and you are waiting for stress. Actually, it's a good thing. It's like, I'm waiting for stress. When it comes, like, yes, training time, right? You need to thank Allah subhanahu, or thank God for this. No, thank God for stressing me out. Actually, why? Because it's a training thing, right? So the more, the better. How many times we say, oh, this guy over there, he's an old man, yeah? He has so much experience, right? Because he went through so much, yeah? That makes sense, see? And, yeah, and you put a little bit of optimism, and you're good to go. Tomorrow, it's my birthday, And for me, having a birthday around the corner is actually very stressful, see? So I'm going to go now and apply this mechanism because I'm kind of stressed out, see? You guys were an amazing audience. Thank you very much. And Jazakumullah khairan.